Hi everyone, Cheryl Hope back here answering a really important question. The question was, what is the PBCC? So the PBCC stands for Plymouth Brethren Christian Church. They were formerly known as the Exclusive Brethren before they lost their charity status, and they had to rebrand themselves the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church. They were formed in the early 1900s. The first 150 years were just a very strict Protestant church. They were still very closed and fundamentalist. In the 60s, they became more cult-like when the fixation was on the leader of the church versus God and biblical teachings that you would normally find in a mainstream Christian church. Their leader is known as the man of God or elect vessel, and he is known to be sinless or hasn't sinned from a very young age. And he is the manifestation of God on earth. In the early 2000, Bruce Hales took over, and he morphed it again into a huge business and money-making machine. This is Bruce Hales, and I show his picture because you'll probably never see him. He is kept quite hidden. He rarely goes to meetings, and when he does, he takes his security guard with him. They drive into a tent into the church. He gets out. He is not seen by the public. He goes in, does his service, and gets back into that car and goes home. So you will not see him or be able to communicate with him like you would a normal leader of a church or what you would call a pastor. Bruce Hales does not show his face and is not readily available to his congregation like a normal church would be. The PBCC is based on their scripture that talks about separation and withdrawing from iniquity. So if you aren't a part of their church following their rules, you're considered of the world and impure. And they believe in the second coming of Christ, the rapture, and that only those that are pure will be the ones that are taken. So they keep this rule very up at the front of everything that they do and use it to keep themselves as separate as they do. One of the biggest things that you'll know about this church once you start researching them, or if you've worked for them, you'll find that they are very racist, very homophobic, and very misogynistic. Women are at the bottom there. They don't speak in the church services. They sit at the back separate. I'll show you a picture of what it looks like inside the church. So this is a picture of inside one of their meeting halls, and they are in a circular shape on an incline. And the women sit at the back with the children, and the men sit near the front. And the front row is reserved for those that are of a great importance. So it's a huge hierarchical system in there. My father never sat on the front row while I was in there. We were at the bottom of the totem pole, so he was in the third row. So you are placed as your importance and what they deem your worth for inside there. Now it is very much about money. And the more money you make, the closer to the front row you get. The women can't cut their hair. You can't wear makeup. You have to wear skirts and dresses. So you're not allowed to wear shorts or pants. The men, you'll normally see them in white button-up shirts and their black slacks and white socks. So they're very, very noticeable once you see them. You cannot eat with others. In school, on home ec class, because I was still going to a public school back then, they just, their schools weren't out yet when I was there. They were formed shortly after I left. There was homeschooling first, and then they created OSG, which is One School Global. But in home ec class, if we had to cook something and then you ate it after, we had to be segregated off to the side of the classroom with our own table. Also, when movies came into our classrooms, we had to get up and walk out. So there was a lot of ridicule and bullying going on because we were made to be so different. And that's really how they got at your self-esteem. And you didn't dare leave because you would have to leave your whole family. So it was one of the ways that the psychological warfare that we go through was created. It's created from a very, very early age. So the women's role is pretty much to cook, clean, and have babies. I've heard recently that a man gets to choose 3 women and talk to all 3 of them and then choose one of those. So it's getting more and more very much arranged marriages. And I know arranged marriages happened in there, but it's becoming more and more so of arranged marriages from a man just simply picking. And if you get chosen, you have to say yes. Like women can't say, no, I don't want to. You'd most likely get excommunicated. They have their own schools, as I mentioned before. So their schools are known as OSG, One School Global. And the typical things that you would find in there, there's pages and pages and pages of lists of books that are banned there. Most of the teachers that we come across and come forward to us all have the same stories. They don't get to report things. So if they feel like some sort of abuse is happening and they report it, nothing is usually done with it. There is extreme bullying there due to the hierarchical system, and teachers go missing. They just disappear overnight. And the people come back and say, they've gone on to something different. But the teachers know that, no, that's not true. That a teacher doesn't just up and leave. And this is like clear across the globe that we've had reports of that, and had anonymous teachers do calls with us letting us know what's going on. And the stories are all the same. There's no university. So if someone in there wants to become a doctor or a lawyer or a vet or, your everyday chosen career, you don't get to do that. A female definitely doesn't get to do that. So the men are trained to become business owners. That is their thing. That's how they make their money, is they develop these multi-million-dollar businesses and try every way, shape, and form to soak money out of them for Bruce. And we all know that that's where it's going. I mean, we've had both Bruce Hales' sons have bought mansions, $1 million mansions, $9.5 million, $7.5 million mansions. When my parents, I know, are probably still sitting in their little tiny house that they've had all their life and struggling the way that they struggled. That's the sad part of it all. But you're very brainwashed. They're very much brainwashed in there to give up their money. And that's how Bruce does what he does, is he's constantly finding ways for them to give up their money. They think it goes to their schools. They think it goes to Campus & Co. They have their own grocery stores. It's not happening, right? When you see Bruce and what he does with his money, you know that money is not going to the allocated places that they think it is, especially when their schools get government funding too. And that's another frustrating thing about this, is that our taxpayer money is going to these schools that are very secluded and having all these issues. We've had reports of alcohol being in water bottles at school. So alcoholism is a huge, huge factor in there. And in Australia, that just recently there was a horrific crash that killed a couple people. And you don't find things being done about this because alcohol is the way that they all cope in there. They also have their own laptops and phones that are controlled by the brethren. They have software on them that tracks them. They also have an app called Orbit that if you want to go somewhere out of your locality, the place that they live in, the city that you live in, you actually have to put it into this app and it has to get approved. So you just can't go somewhere on your own free will. It has to be approved by someone. Another crazy fact about them is that you're not allowed to have pets. And in the 60s, when it was radicalized, that was the first thing that was taken out. And anybody who had pets had to get rid of their pets. A lot of them were just put down, shot. And you hear a lot of reports of their inhumane treatment towards animals. There's so much to be told about the PBCC that it's hard to get this all done in 10 minutes. So send me more questions and I'll answer them all individually.